If you go up to any rental car counter and you ask for the cheapest vehicle available, they're probably going to hand you the keys to a Nissan Versa, like this one. Well, maybe not quite like this one, because for the 2020 model year, Nissan has completely revamped the Versa, making it a lot nicer than the one you probably rented the last time you were on vacation. We've got the nicest SR trim, and I'm going to explain to you why this is much nicer than the Versa you probably rented the last time you went on vacation. Let's start off by taking a look at the Versa on the outside, where I think Nissan has done a really nice job making this look a lot better than the outgoing car. Since we have the SR, we've got these nice big 17-inch wheels. They look pretty nice, especially this nice blue paint job. You can get this car in like a basic color like white, but why go for that? Go for a nice, exciting color. We've got the nice, sleek new LED headlights that lead into our Nissan V-Motion grille, which again, I think the front fascia looks pretty good, just like a smaller Sentra or Maxima. Now, leading around the back, we've got some sporty looking taillights as well, with a little tiny lip spoiler, just to let you know as a subtle hint that this is the sporty SR trim. Now let's go ahead and hop in the cabin. So I think the exterior styling on this new Versa is a big win, and I think Nissan has scored yet another big win on the interior, where since we have the highest SR trim, we have all of the nicest stuff you can get on a Versa here, and this really does make me feel confident that this is just a lot nicer than the old Versa that you probably rented when you last went on vacation. So let's start off with the steering wheel. We have like a nice leather. It's not the softest leather in the world, but it does have this orange stitching. Nissan has also put some nice black leather here on the dash with some orange stitching. That's what you get on the SR trim. You can't get leather seats, but we do have these pretty nice cloth seats. They're fairly comfortable, although they're not Nissan's like amazing zero gravity seats that you get on the Sentra. We've got some orange accents on those as well. And to be expected of a car that doesn't even top out above 20 grand, you are going to get plenty of hard plastics around the dash, but again, to be expected on a subcompact car like this. I really like this gauge cluster that Nissan has done here on the SR trim. We have a very normal speedometer, but over here on the left, we have our tach, which is pretty standard on a car. But if you don't need the RPMs, which really, why do you in any car? You can change that to have your audio, your fuel economy, your trip information, different settings, things like that. So I kind of like how that's configurable like that on an inexpensive car like this. Because we have a $300 convenience package, we have heated seats and we have our adaptive cruise controls. That's pretty amazing on a sub $20,000 car that you can get adaptive cruise when companies like BMW, Audi, and Mercedes still charge extra for this. I think that's absolutely crazy. We also have blind spot monitoring. That's another really nicety. When I throw it into reverse, we have a backup camera with trajectory lines. Of course, backup cameras are mandatory now, but it's nice that they added trajectory lines on an inexpensive vehicle like this. And while I'm on the subject of the display over here, it's a 7-inch screen that you get on the two upper trim levels of the Versa. It's pretty similar to how Nissan's other systems function. It's a little smaller than what you'll get on some other Nissan vehicles, but again, this is a small cockpit, so it doesn't look too small in the grand scheme of things. The one problem that I do have with it, though, is that it is glare filled, so if this gets hit with the sun, you almost can't see what's on it. Nissan, please fix that. It's a big issue on a few of your cars, but that being said, you do get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as a standard feature if you get this 7-inch screen, which is pretty nice. So you don't have built-in navigation, but with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, I don't really think you need it. You also have push button start, as I mentioned earlier, with a huge little cubby here, just a basic transmission lever for the CVT transmission with your very hidden sport mode that we're going to go ahead and try out when we get it out on the road. Now, the only only other thing I want to mention up here on the interior, because it is an optional extra, is this center armrest. So as standard, you get sort of like a swinging armrest that kind of folds out from the seat, similar to what you get on the Kicks as well. But Nissan has added this $300 armrest. It's kind of cool because you get this little coin holder if you're one of those people that still holds coins in your car. But I absolutely hate how stiff this armrest is. It's got this little bit that kind of sticks out too far. I bump my elbow on it every time I get into this car, and for $300 I would just take the open space. Now let's go ahead and check out the back seat. Back here is not the most comfortable place to sit. I have pretty limited headroom back here. I do have 31 inches of legroom. We push the seat up just a little bit. If I came here and sat into this raised middle seat, I really don't have a lot of legroom, and there's not even a folding armrest back here. So again, this is a very simple and basic car. That being said, you do get 2 USB ports to charge your devices back here. And in the trunk, you've got a pretty handy 14.3 cubic feet of cargo space, which is bigger than a lot of subcompacts. It actually punches well into the compact and even the mid-size category when you're talking about trunk space. We've got our camera gear in here now with plenty of room for another 1 or maybe even 2 large roller bags in here, and the seats do fold down to give you some additional room as well. So now that we've checked out that, let's go ahead and get the Versa out on the road. All right, so now let's go ahead and get the Versa out on the road and see how it performs. Now, the thing you want to always check with a car that's this low level with this few horsepower is how it accelerates. So let's go ahead and pull out and see how she does. Ready? I'm gonna floor it. All right, okay. So I don't know if you could hear that. We have a CVT transmission here, continuously variable, and it sounded like it did a couple of shifts there. So those who were wondering if Nissan has improved its CVT technology to not be as raw and drony, I think this one is actually quite adequate. There's only one engine choice, if you can even call it an engine. I almost want to call it like a little mouse turning a wheel under the hood. It's a 1.6 liter, so very tiny, but it does produce okay numbers for the car's weight. It only weighs about 2,700 pounds, so you get 122 horsepower and 114 pound-feet of torque, and those numbers are a 12% increase over the previous Versa, which was just a really, really slow vehicle. This one will do 0 to 60 in about 9.7 seconds. So again, you're not going to win any drag races. We have it linked to the CVT. You can get a 5-speed manual, but only on the base model. I haven't actually had a chance to drive that, although I'd be very curious to see how that feels, although you'd be missing out on a lot of the features you get on these upper trim levels. Now, drag racing is obviously not what this car was designed for. It's meant to tootle around town effortlessly. It does keep up with traffic quite well, although this morning on our way to the shoot, we did have a little instance where we were stuck in a jammed lane that wasn't moving, and I had to merge over to the left very quickly, and I did panic for just a moment as I had to jump out into that left lane and get up to speed very quickly with only 122 horsepower. But aside from those instances, I feel like the drivetrain is not too stressed out because, you know, it's just a very lightweight car, and you will get really excellent fuel economy as a result of the low weight and the low power. You'll get 32 mpg in the city, 40 on the highway, which is fantastic, and you'll average about 35 mpg combined. And based on the figures that it's showing me on the truck computer, I think all of those numbers sound completely reasonable, if not a little bit underrated. Now let's talk about how this car has been refined for the current generation. This is an all-new Versa after all, and after driving the most recent Sentra just a few weeks ago, I'm a little bit disappointed at the Versa, although remember, this is a cheaper, smaller, less expensive car, so it isn't going to be quite as nice to drive as the Sentra. That being said, the steering is very light. It makes this car quite tossable. There's not a ton of feedback, but it's not super boring and vague either. Now, the biggest difference I think between the Versa and the Sentra is the Sentra has that amazing independent rear suspension. This just has a simple torsion beam. that's going to affect the ride and handling quite a bit. When you go over a rough bump in the Versa, you're going to feel it wiggle around a little bit more. It just doesn't have the sophistication that the Sentra does. But for a lot less money, I don't think that's too big of a gripe, and I don't think too many drivers are really going to notice it if you're shopping in this class of car, the subcompact class. Now, there is a sport mode. It's actually quite hard to find. It's here on the shifter. It's this unmarked button that you probably wouldn't even notice. They do this on a lot of Nissans now. All it's really going to do is adjust the RPMs. So the CVT is going to lower its ratio, so you're going to have a little bit quicker access to power. Although I've noted when you floor it in this car, like with most Nissan CVTs, you do get pretty immediate power, what there is of it. So again, this car is quite nice to drive. I love a little tiny, light, tossable car like this, and to drive, they've definitely made some very nice improvements to the refinement. It's not the quietest car in the world, but on the highway, it won't drive you nuts, and it is quite smooth and comfortable. So that was the 2020 Nissan Versa. Now, I think your decision to buy or not buy this car is probably going to come down to price, because this is a pretty affordable car. Although it is not the cheapest car in America anymore, that honor now goes to the Mitsubishi Mirage. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about price because of how important I think it is. You can get a base Nissan Sentra with a 5-speed manual transmission starting at $14,700 or thereabouts. This SR trim is a lot nicer, starts at $18,240, which is still a pretty impressive price, but this one has, strangely, a lot of options on it that I wouldn't necessarily get. Now, $300 for the convenience package, that's the heated seats and adaptive cruise control, absolutely, I would go ahead and get that. $210 for floor mats, no, you can get those elsewhere. Now, the thing that I really want to tell you not to get is that armrest for $300. I bump my elbow on it every time, no thank you. $855 for the electronics package. That's absolutely crazy. All that gets you is a pocket light in the for the map, illuminated kick plates, frameless auto dimming mirror with universal remote control garage opener. Like, yeah, no thanks for $855. And for $690, you're gonna get this ambient lighting on the outside and ground effects lighting. Yeah, definitely no thank you. That stuff adds over $1,000 to the price of the car, pushing this tester with destination to almost $21,500, which I think is a bit outrageous for a Versa. I would just probably step up to a Sentra at that point. But if you just keep it to the adaptive cruise control and the blind spot monitoring, you can keep this car under $19,000, which I think makes it a great deal, and it is no longer reserved only for the rental car counter. I think Nissan has done a very nice job improving this 2020 Nissan Versa. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.